Hey, you're early, called out Sam from the kitchen, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the hall. Couldn't sleep, mumbled Mark, rubbing his eyes. Another one of those nights. The two friends had a silent agreement that early mornings were for sharing the weight of their dreams, or lack thereof. Sam handed him a steaming mug and a knowing smile. It's going to be a big day, she said, sipping her own coffee. Mark nodded, taking a sip. You're not kidding. The kitchen lights reflected off the chrome surfaces, giving the room a sterile, yet cozy glow. Outside the small porthole window, stars twinkled like a sea of diamonds thrown against a velvet canvas. They were aboard the SS Odyssey, a space station orbiting the Earth, a marvel of human innovation. Mark's mind was racing with the day's tasks, but he forced himself to focus on the comforting warmth of the coffee in his hands. Sam, did you hear about the new arrival? He finally asked, breaking the quiet. Sam's eyes lit up. You mean the mermaid? She whispered, as if saying the words too loudly might make it less true. Yeah, Mark said with a smirk. Some kind of top-secret biological experiment from the surface. A mermaid, she repeated, disbelief coloring her voice. In space. In a spacesuit. They both chuckled, the absurdity of the situation momentarily easing the tension that had been building in the air like a storm front. But the laughter died down as quickly as it had come, and they exchanged a look that acknowledged the gravity of their job. Guess we're going to find out, Mark said, setting down his mug. Let's get to work. The duo donned their own suits, the fabric whispering softly as they moved. They checked each other's seals and equipment, the routine as familiar as the layout of their childhood bedrooms. As they headed for the lab, the echoes of their footsteps bounced off the metallic walls, a rhythmic heartbeat of anticipation. The space station was eerily quiet, as if it too were holding its breath for what was to come. The lab was a hive of activity when they arrived. Scientists in white coats flitted about, their eyes glued to screens and monitors. The air was thick with the scent of antiseptic and the faint buzz of electrical equipment. In the center of the room, a large, transparent tank took up most of the space. Inside, the mermaid floated serenely, her long hair drifting around her like a cloud of seaweed. Her scales shimmered in the artificial light, casting rainbow patterns on the gleaming surfaces. Her eyes were closed, and she looked peaceful, oblivious to the frenzy outside her watery sanctuary. As Mark and Sam approached, she slowly opened her eyes, revealing irises the color of a nebula, swirling with blues and purples. She tilted her head, studying them with a curiosity that was almost human. Her tail flicked gently, sending ripples through the water. She's beautiful, Sam murmured, her voice filled with wonder. And she's wearing a spacesuit, Mark said, his voice laced with disbelief. The suit was a masterpiece of engineering, designed to mimic the flow of water around her body, allowing her to navigate the zero gravity with ease. It had been painted to match her scales, blending her into the water like a chameleon. The team leader, Dr. Castellanos, strode over, his expression a mix of pride and wariness. This is a monumental day, he said, his eyes flicking between them. We're on the brink of something incredible. How does she breathe? Mark asked, his gaze still locked on the mermaid. The suit's life support system, Dr. Castellanos explained, gesturing to a complex array of tubes and sensors attached to the mermaid. It filters water and oxygen, creating a perfect aquatic environment for her. And what's her purpose here? Sam ventured. The doctor's expression grew more guarded. That's classified, he said, his voice firm. But I can tell you that her presence opens up a world of possibilities for our understanding of biology and adaptation. The mermaid's gaze remained on them, her curiosity unwavering. Mark couldn't help but feel a twinge of something akin to kinship. Here they were, two species bound by their love of exploration, separated only by a pane of glass and millions of years of evolution. As the day unfolded, they learned the mermaid could communicate through a series of lights and sounds embedded in the tank. They named her Stella, after the Latin word for star. Her eyes followed them around the lab, and when they left for breaks, she would often mimic their movements, her tail swishing in time with their steps. But as they grew more accustomed to her presence, the whispers of doubt began to surface. What would happen if the mission went wrong? What if she didn't adapt to space? The excitement of discovery was tempered by the sobering reality of their responsibility. "We need to make sure she's happy," Sam said, her eyes reflecting the same concern Mark felt. "This can't just be about science." Mark nodded, his mind racing. They had a job to do, but they were also her custodians in this strange new world. They had to find a way to bridge the gap between ocean and stars, between myth and reality. The next few weeks passed in a blur of tests and observations. Stella grew more adept at using the communication system, flashing patterns of light that grew increasingly complex. Mark and Sam found themselves spending every spare moment with her, sharing stories of the Earth they knew and the mysteries of the cosmos that lay just beyond the station's hull. But the day came when the whispers grew louder, and the mission's true intentions were revealed. They weren't just studying her, they were preparing her for something more. And as Mark and Sam looked into Stella's eyes, now filled with a newfound understanding, they realized that their roles in her story had only just begun. The briefing room was cold and stark, the kind of place where secrets felt out of place. Yet here they were, gathered around a holographic projection that displayed a detailed mission plan. "Stella is to be our emissary," announced Dr. Castellanos, his voice carrying the weight of the words. "An ambassador to the alien oceans of Europa." The room was silent, the only sound the hiss of the oxygen recyclers. The concept was staggering. A mermaid, a creature of Earth's folklore, sent to represent humanity on a distant moon. Mark and Sam exchanged a glance, the gravity of their situation sinking in like a lead weight. "We've made contact with a submerged civilization," Dr. Castellanos continued, his eyes gleaming. "Their technology is beyond our understanding, but they've shown an interest in ours. They wish to learn from us, and in exchange, they're willing to share their knowledge." The team's excitement grew palpable, a tangible force in the air. But Mark couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more at play here, something that made his skin crawl. "But why, Stella?" Sam spoke up, her voice filled with concern. "What makes her so special?" "Her ability to adapt, to bridge two worlds," the doctor replied. "And she has something they do not, a soul, a spark of humanity. We believe it will be the key to our alliance." The briefing concluded, leaving Mark and Sam with a heavy burden. They had to prepare Stella for a journey that would take her further from home than any creature of her kind had ever gone before. The training sessions grew longer and more intense. Stella learned to navigate the spacesuit with a grace that belied her newfound form. She studied the stars with them, her eyes wide with wonder as they pointed out the constellations and recounted the ancient myths of sea and sky. One night, as they floated in the zero-gravity gym, Mark found himself sharing the story of Icarus, the boy who flew too close to the sun. Stella's gaze grew pensive, her tail stroking the water in contemplation. "Icarus's fall was a warning," Mark said, his voice soft. "But maybe, just maybe, with Stella, we can rewrite the ending." The days grew shorter, the countdown to the mission's launch ever present in their thoughts. As they worked together, a bond grew between them, a silent understanding that transcended the barriers of language and species. But as they approached the final preparations, an unexpected malfunction occurred in the life support system. The lights in the lab flickered, and Stella's eyes grew wide with fear. Mark's heart raced as he dove into the water, his hand finding the release for her helmet. "It's okay," he assured her, his voice calm. "We're going to fix it." As they floated there, the air thick with tension, Mark felt a strange warmth in his chest. It grew, pulsing like the heart of a star, until he realized what it was: hope. Hope that they could overcome the challenges ahead, hope that Stella's journey would not be in vain. The crisis passed, the malfunction resolved, and the training continued. But the incident had left its mark, a stark reminder that their work was not just scientific but personal. Stella was no longer just a subject but a friend, a symbol of peace between two worlds. And as the day of departure grew closer, Mark and Sam knew that their hearts would be with her, floating among the stars as she embarked on the greatest adventure of her life. The final preparations were meticulous, every detail scrutinized. The spacesuit was checked and rechecked, the life support systems calibrated to her exact biological needs. Stella was to be equipped with a device that would allow her to communicate with the alien life forms on Europa, a delicate blend of human technology and her own unique abilities. On the day of the launch, The space station's hangar was a flurry of activity. The shuttle gleamed under the bright lights, a silver bullet ready to pierce the void of space. Stella looked at them with a mix of excitement and trepidation, her glowing eyes reflecting the determination that had become a cornerstone of their friendship. They helped her into the custom-designed pod, which would serve as both her transport and her ambassadorial chariot. The pod was filled with water from her own ocean, a comforting reminder of home. As the hatch sealed with a hiss, Mark and Sam pressed their palms to the cool glass, whispering words of encouragement that only she could hear. The countdown began, a rhythmic chant that echoed through the station's corridors. 10, 9, 8. With each descending number, their hearts felt heavier, bound by the gravity of what they were about to do. The shuttle roared to life. A beast awakened from its slumber, and slowly, it began to move. Stella's pod was secured in the cargo hold, a solitary figure in the vastness of the shuttle's belly. The engine's vibrations rumbled through the floor, a bassline to the symphony of the space station's mechanical breath. As the shuttle drifted away from the safety of the SS Odyssey, Mark and Sam watched through the observation deck's windows, their breaths fogging the glass. Stella's pod was a solitary dot against the inky black of space, growing smaller and smaller until it was swallowed by the void. The silence that followed was profound, a stark contrast to the chaotic symphony of the previous weeks. They turned to each other, their eyes reflecting a mix of pride and fear. "We did all we could," Mark said, his voice thick with emotion. Sam nodded, her hand finding its way into his. "We gave her the stars." Their fingers intertwined, a silent promise to each other that they would always be there for her. A beacon of humanity in the vast, uncharted waters of the cosmos. And as they watched the shuttle's taillights fade into the distance, they knew that their lives, and the fate of two worlds, had been forever changed by the beautiful mermaid in the spacesuit. Days turned into weeks, and the emptiness of the lab grew heavier with each passing moment. The once bustling hub of excitement was now a silent sanctuary of their shared memories. They pored over the data collected from Stella's pod, eager for any sign of her safe arrival. And then, one morning, it came. A garbled message, filled with static and interference, but unmistakable in its beauty and intent. The alien tones and patterns grew clearer, the language of the Europa's inhabitants woven through the fabric of the communication device. It was a greeting, an invitation, a declaration of peace. The entire space station erupted in cheers, the sound bouncing off the walls like a celebration of life itself. Mark and Sam hugged, tears in their eyes, knowing that Stella had done it. She had made contact, had proven that even in the vastness of the universe, hearts could find common ground. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of diplomatic negotiations and preparations for the next phase of the mission. Scientists from across the globe clamored for a chance to study Stella's interactions with the alien life forms, while politicians debated the implications of this newfound friendship. But amidst the chaos, Mark and Sam found themselves drawn back to the quiet of the lab, the place where it all began. They stared out the porthole, the earth a blue marble suspended in the void, and wondered what Stella was seeing now. Was she marveling at the icy majesty of Europa, or had she found kinship in its mysterious depths? Their thoughts were interrupted by a soft beep from the computer. An incoming message, one that wasn't in the alien code they had come to know. It was a simple melody, hauntingly familiar, a tune that seemed to carry the echo of the sea. Stella had learned to sing their language, and now she was singing back. Their hearts swelled with joy as they listened to her song, a bridge built of notes and waves that transcended the void of space. They realized then that she wasn't just an ambassador. She was a symbol of hope, a testament to the boundless potential of life. And as the melody faded into the background of the ever-present hum of the space station, Mark and Sam knew that no matter where Stella's journey took her, she would always be a part of them. They had given her the stars, but in return, she had given them a glimpse into the vast and wondrous tapestry of the universe. A reminder that even in the most unlikely of places, friendship could blossom. The message from Europa grew more frequent, the tunes evolving into a complex symphony of sounds and images that told a story of discovery and unity. The alien creatures had accepted Stella. had recognized in her the same curiosity and spirit that had driven humanity to the stars. Their days were now filled with translating these messages, piecing together the story of her adventure. They watched as she swam alongside beings that shimmered like the auroras of her home planet, sharing in their joy and sorrow, their hopes and fears. Stella had become more than an envoy. She was a bridge between two worlds, a living embodiment of peace. But with each message, a new challenge arose. The aliens spoke of an ancient prophecy, one that spoke of a time when the seas of their world would face a great upheaval. The prophecy foretold the arrival of a creature from the stars, one who would help them navigate the tumultuous waters ahead. The gravity of the situation grew heavier with each passing day. The mission had taken on a new urgency, one that transcended scientific curiosity. It was now a quest to save not just one world, but two. And at the center of it all was Stella, the mermaid who had captured their hearts and the fate of the cosmos. With renewed purpose, Mark and Sam threw themselves into their work. They studied the data, seeking any clue that might aid Stella in her quest. They worked alongside the station's best minds, sharing her experiences and learning from the wisdom of the stars. But it was in the quiet moments, as they sat by the porthole, that they felt her presence the most. Her eyes, filled with the light of 1,000 suns, seemed to look back at them, guiding them through the darkness. And as they watched the earth spin below, a silent promise grew between them. They would not abandon Stella to the whims of fate. They would stand by her, even if it meant diving into the abyss themselves. For she was not just their mission, she was their friend, their sister of the sea. And so, as the space station's lights dimmed and the stars grew brighter, Mark and Sam made a pact. They would find a way to join her, to stand beside her as she faced the trials of the prophecy. They would become explorers not just of space, but of the boundless depths of friendship and courage. Their determination grew with every heartbeat, a beacon that pierced the void. They knew that the road ahead would be fraught with peril, that the waters of Europa would hold secrets as vast and deep as the ocean they had left behind. But as they listened to the whispers of the cosmos, they felt a surge of hope, a pulse that resonated with the rhythm of Stella's song. For they were no longer just inhabitants of the SS Odyssey, bound by steel and gravity. They were guardians of the stars, the chosen companions of a mermaid on a quest to save her newfound family. And as they plotted their course through the inky black, they knew that together they could conquer any challenge the universe had in store. Mermaid wearing a spacesuit happily flowing around in the space station.